description of Martin's story stuck in my head. I bought a copy of the first A Song of Ice and Fire novel, A Game of Thrones. Like countless others, I fell headlong into Martin's daringly original world. Within a few weeks, I finished the third book in his saga, A Storm of Swords, which was the most exciting and horrifying stretch of page-turning twists and turns I had ever read. I began obsessively covering the progress of HBO's pilot. Colleagues would ask, "Why do you write so much about that one show?" I would reply, "Because if they can pull off adapting the books, and I don't think anybody can, it will change television." By the time the first season of Game of Thrones premiered in 2011, I had moved to Entertainment Weekly, where I embarked on a series of annual visits to the Thrones set. I was in the desert when Daenerys stood outside the gates of Qarth, bared witness to Sansa and Tyrion's awkward wedding, watched Joffrey suffer his well-deserved demise, was among the crowd for Cersei's Walk of Shame, trekked on a frozen lake during Jon Snow's quest beyond the Wall, and paced Winterfell's ramparts during the climactic Long Night. Over the years, I grew to admire the cast and crew's dedication to making the best possible show, a commitment that often resulted in outright suffering. We're so accustomed to seeing life on movie and TV sets depicted as soft and easy. Stars lounging between takes in posh RVs, directors riding around in golf carts on sunny studio back lots, a cast of heroes filming against a green screen backdrop for computer animators to later insert them into fabrications of harsh environments and deadly peril. The glamorous and comfortable vision of the entertainment world does exist if you're on a big-budget production in Hollywood, filming on a major studio lot. That was never Thrones. The show was unlike any production, film or television, I have ever seen before or since. Working on Thrones was being wet and freezing for 11 hours, night after night, week after week, and learning to accept that sometimes you were going to be utterly miserable in order to get a shot just right. Thrones was being 6'6" Rory McCann, an actor made even bigger by his character's heavy costume and boots, whose only way to rest after shooting an exhausting action sequence was to curl up on the hard floor of a tiny utilitarian trailer, his face half covered in suffocating latex, a space heater making the drafty caravan either too hot or too cold. And while the production sometimes relied on green screen, more often, Thrones actors worked on wholly immersive sets that made you feel like you had literally been transported into another world. By the time the show concluded in 2019, I had written hundreds of stories covering the series. Yet there was much to the making of Game of Thrones that was left untold. What was Benioff and Weiss's first fateful meeting with Martin really like? What went down during the filming of the show's unaired original pilot? How did Thrones pull off its first major battle in Season 2? What happened with the Dorne storyline? Why did the showrunners decide to end the series after 8 seasons? What were those grueling 55 consecutive nights filming The Long Night really like? And hey, why didn't Lady Stoneheart ever show up? My list of lingering questions, along with the desire to create a unified story from my decade of experience covering the show, is the reason for this book. Fire Cannot Kill a Dragon includes more than 50 exclusive new interviews with Game of Thrones producers, executives, cast, and crew that were conducted after the series finale. There are also many quotes that were previously published by EW, as well as occasional quotes that were reported in other outlets, which are attributed in the text along the way. Of course, no single book can capture the entirety of making a production as long-running and complex as Thrones, but it's my hope that listeners will find some fascinating behind-the-scenes stories here about the characters and moments they love the most. Thrones was also, it should be said, controversial, from literally its first episode to its last, and many of those topics are likewise addressed by the show's producers, directors, and cast. Surely not to the satisfaction of all, but you'll now learn why certain choices were made.